Today I'm going to take you through the Creating Rails Applications lesson and the lesson on Anatomy of a Rails app all at once. So let's get started with creating Rails applications. This is pretty short and I'm just going to show you how to set all of this up and get going. The first thing we're going to do is go ahead and open up Terminal or your command line application, whatever it is. Let's change directory. Well, first of all, let's check on where we are. I've been keeping my things in this bootcamp demo, so cd bootcamp demo. Inside here we have the bootcamp folder, which we cloned from GitHub, so we'll change into that. Now from here we're going to run Vagrant up and make sure that it's running. Now let's do Vagrant status. Check out and make sure that it worked. Yep, okay. So let's SSH in. And now we should be in our VM. Okay, so let's cd into the /vagrant file. This should all be stuff you're very familiar with now. I'm going to go into my projects directory that I created. Actually, let's go back to the home directory for a moment and let's go ahead and get Rails installed. Okay, so from here I'm going to run this command right here, gem install Rails. What no RI and no RDoc does is it's just going to take less time to install. It's just not going to install some documentation stuff. So we're going to run this and it's going to go ahead and install Rails for us. So here you're going to see a ton of output. It's going to install a bunch of dependencies. Now we should be able to run Rails-V and it's going to tell us Rails 4.1.4. You may get a different version depending on when you're going through this. There may be a new version. Either way, if it's greater than Rails 4, which it will be, then you're good. So from here, now let's cd back into Vagrant. And then ls as usual, just to check. cd projects. And now you can see in here we have our first programs folder. We're not going to go into that because we're going to actually create a new project. Okay, so now that I know that I have Rails installed properly and we've cd'd down into our projects folder or whatever folder you're storing this stuff in, let's do this. Rails new to do app. This is what we create in the article. It's going to create a bunch of stuff and then you're going to see it run this bundle install command, which will take maybe a little while. Okay, so bundle install finished and now I've got all of these gems installed. Gems are a way to package Ruby software, if you didn't know that. So when you do gem install, you're just installing some Ruby software. So now that we have done that, run ls. And you can see we have our first programs directory and now we have a new directory called to-do app. So let's change the directory down into the to-do app and run ls again, and you can see that there is a lot of stuff in here. And so what we're going to do in this episode is I'm going to walk you through what a lot of this stuff is and how you can use a little bit of it. There's a lot going on here and obviously we're not going to go into the depths of everything today. But I just want to get you familiar with it so you can kind of know how to start manipulating things. Okay, so from here, if you've got this far, you can run Rails S, which is short for Rails server, which I think I said in the article. And from here, you can go to your web browser and run localhost 3000. And if you've done everything properly, you should see this, which is just a welcome page from Rails to let you know that you've got everything set up, and it links to the guides and the API. So there's a lot of really useful stuff in here actually, and if you want to go through the Rails guides, that's really helpful, but it can be a little bit intimidating if you're brand new. A last point to make before we move on: when you see anything that's localhost 3000, that means that this is actually running on your computer, or in this case on your virtual machine. So it's actually a server running on your VM. So this is not on the internet or anything like that yet. And later, maybe in a later course, we'll get more into like different environments. So you'll frequently hear this called your development environment. So we're going to create an application and it's going to run like a website on your server on your virtual machine. From here, we're going to stop the server, and so go back to the terminal and hit Control-C, and that will stop the server. Now, let's go back to the article really fast and see where we are. So we just ran the server, stopped the server. Now we're going to generate what's called a scaffold. And in the article it says to type generate. You can type G, it's a shorthand. And a scaffold is like a bunch of pre-written code for you. Once you get a little more advanced, you probably won't use scaffolds very often. I do sometimes if I'm just trying to throw something up really quickly. But basically it just creates a bunch of standard code for you. So let's call it to do, and then we gave it a title, and we give it a data type, string. This is actually creating a database table with a column in it for the title of the to-do item. And I'm going to throw a little bonus content out there for you watching the video. So we're going to give it a position and then an integer. So it's another data type. Okay, so when I said that this is actually creating a database table, it's not 100% true. What it's actually doing is it creates a migration, which is something we'll get into later, but it's really a template for how to create a database table. So to create the table, actually, we need to run this thing called rake. It's short for Ruby make. Don't worry about it if that's beyond you at the moment. But you're going to run rake db :migrate. And this is actually going to create the database table for you. And you see it runs this migration and creates the table. Alright, so at this point, we've actually created a basic app. So to see what I mean, type Rails S again and start your server back up. Once that starts, go back to your web browser and just add a /todos. And this is going to load a page. This is just generated from the scaffold thing that you did. So in here we can do a lot of stuff actually. So we can create a new to-do. Buy groceries. And the position thing is something I'll show you in a little bit. But I'm going to give it a position of 1. Then we create the to-do. And then we can go back and it's going to list it out. So we have a fully interactive app that is connected to a database, and we can just keep creating stuff, do laundry, position 2. Okay, and so you can see that it's just going to list these out in the order that you create them in. I'm going to show you how to do something pretty cool with the position in a minute, kind of as a bonus. But anyway, okay, so the next thing that I show you how to do in here is actually create a blog. Or at least the bones of a blog. I'm not going to do that here. I would encourage you to go ahead and go do that whenever you finish this video. Just practice creating a new app and see how it all works. Then the next thing I want to do is actually show you how the app is put together a little bit. Again, this is going to be a quick overview just to show you around. But I want to show you how things fit together so you can start to get an idea of how you can modify this stuff and start adding to it. To show you where everything is, we need to open up the code. So go to your Sublime Text or whatever you're using and do open. Then I'm going to go into my Bootcamp demo folder, Bootcamp, Projects, To Do App. And I'm actually going to open up this directory. Okay, so take a look in here. This is the exact same stuff you saw when you type ls inside this directory in the terminal. The most important folder that you're going to work in the majority of the time, where your application actually lives, is this app folder. I shouldn't say the most important. All the folders are probably equally important, but this is the one that you're going to work in the most. You see you have this assets folder, style sheets, JavaScript, that's that kind of stuff. Controllers, you probably don't know what most of this is at the moment, but don't worry about it. Just look around, kind of see where everything is. Another important folder is this config folder. We're going to start in this file in just a minute. Then let's see, database. You can see here, you can go see your schema. You can see what tables you have. Don't be intimidated to go look around. There's a lot of stuff, but just go look. Don't change anything if you don't know what it is, but just look around and play with it. Okay, so now I'm going to show you kind of how the app works at a high level. So I'm back over here in the routes file, routes.rb, inside the config directory. This is where everything starts. Let's say that your website was todoitems.com or something like that. So when someone comes to a link on your site, say todoitems.com/dashboard or something, the first thing that happens is your app looks in this routes file to see if there's a route that matches that. And if it does, it's going to point it to a particular controller. So, for example, back in our app that we've made so far, we went to /todos. So if I try to go to like /dashboard, it doesn't, no route matches get dashboard. But if I go to to-dos, obviously it does. And in the article I explain this a little bit more, but this resources to-dos is actually generating a bunch of routes for us. Okay, so let me just walk you through the high-level process, and then I'm actually going to show you in a little bit more detail. So I told you that this points at a controller, so resources to-dos. So in here there's, I'm going to comment this out, but there's something similar to get /todos, and then it's going to point at something like to-dos $index. So this resources to-dos is generating something like this on the back end, so that it's pointing it at the to-dos controller. So if we look in our controllers folder, we'll see we have a to-dos controller. In here we have an index action. Make sense so far? So what happens now? So the index action is doing a couple of things, some of it obvious, some of it behind the scenes. So we've got this at todos equals todo.all. Now let me show you something. So if we go back to the terminal and we stop the server, this is important that you're still inside of the app directory. So if we do ls, we can see I still have access to the app. So I showed you IRB before. This is the same type of thing, but it actually loads your entire application and your database and everything. So we're going to run Rails console, or you can just do Rails C, either way. And it loads an IRB looking thing. It actually looks exactly like IRB on here. So now I can do a lot of stuff. So I can do all the same stuff I did in IRB. So I have that. But let me show you something really cool. So now I can do todo.all. And you can see that it's looking up my to-do items from the database. And I can call them in here and I can manipulate them. I can do to-do.new. And it's going to create a new empty one. It's not saved. If I wanted to save it, I would have to do something else. I would have to do like, well, let me just show you how. So I could go to-do equals to-do.new, and then I could do to-do.title equals, hey, a new to-do item. I cannot type. And then I could do to-do.position equals 3, and then to-do.save. And you can see that you can manipulate it all that you want to, but until you save it, it's not actually in the database.